If you're an average player, you want to be left alone, all right, because you want to be able to slide by. If you're a good player, you want to be coached. If you're a great player, you want the coach to tell you the truth every day. Did I hustle on that play? Did I make the right read? Did I play the guy with the right leverage? You want to know every play, because you know why? They want to be perfect. Everybody here makes a choice to do one of those three things.
Welcome to the GOAT Consulting Podcast, a podcast dedicated to people striving to be a GOAT, the greatest of all time, serving it up in a way that you can get it in all stages of life.
Hey, I'm Colby Jubenville, and welcome to another episode of the GOAT Consulting Podcast right here in studio in VC Productions in Nashville, Tennessee. This is season 3. We're so excited about that. We've got somebody new at the table, and we'll talk about that in just a second here. But to the right, always got his new lifestyle brand kicking. It's a great new shirt, the GOAT Lifestyle. My good friend, the CEO of the GOAT family of brands, Tyler Burnett. Tyler, we're glad you're here today. You did not take the Sprinter.
Not today.
You just drove up on your own. Baby steps for a new beginning for season 3 called Curiosity.
Hopefully that never happens again.
To the left, he's going to be pause. He's going to pause and appreciate. We call him the LinkedIn Whisperer. He's the calming force to our show.
Some days.
My good friend who's a little stressed, but we're going to take him down little by little. John, his last name is Byers. John, we're so excited to be here. We are the GOAT Consulting Podcast. We will introduce one of my favorite people here in just a second at the table. We serve it up like Waffle House. We serve it up in a way that you can get it. We're all about the stages of life, business, and relationships. In our 20s, they teach us to get in the game. In our 30s, they teach us to move up in the game. In our 40s, we try to stay in the game because those 30-year-olds are so damn good. In our 50s, what research says is we say, this is what I really want. I don't think I got that right, but I'm going to keep going.
I like it. I like when you bring the research part in there.
I know. That's your favorite part. Well, I mean, I've got to with John Dunavan at the table. We'll talk about him in just a second. The GOAT, it's the greatest of all time. In sports, it's easy to see. It's people that are recognized for their greatness. They elevate those of the play around them. But in business, it's people that compete on unique perspective, unique education, and unique experience. What they do gives them energy, and it gives other people energy, and it creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. And our guest today, I think, epitomizes someone that does just that creates new levels of challenge and new levels of opportunity. I had a chance to meet John Dunavan at a brand metal event over there in Brentwood where all the moving and shaking happens, and I somehow got you in a corner. And 25 minutes in, we're talking about learning in ways that probably most people wouldn't experience in their first conversation, much less that we're going to make it all about learning. So you don't like to be referred to as a learning scientist, so I won't say that. But you are someone that helps people succeed through learning strategies. And I will say for our global audience out there that watches on different platforms like
Spotify,
YouTube,
Apple Music,
iTunes,
Apple Music, that I texted John about an hour ago and said, hey man, somebody wasn't able to come in. I was going to get you on the show, but can you make it happen today?
Just expedite this bad
And
boy,
he said, I will be there. Much like Dev Digital always is there to deliver
the mail.
They come in right when you need them. So we're so thankful for Dev. We're so thankful for Dev and what they do. But John, we appreciate you being here today. We're excited to unpack learning with you. Thanks. And you've got an incredible story. And we do it a little bit differently here. We start with childhood memories, right? Isn't that what we do?
We do now. Let's go.
So I'm going to turn it over to you, as Spencer would say. John, you take it from here.
Tell us what to do today.
I'm going to let you take it from here. Thank you, John. Thank you for being here. Excited to spend some time with you today.
It's a pleasure.
John Dunavan, it's such a pleasure to meet you. Your beard is beautiful, by the way. I just felt like I needed to say that on the air.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I did. I've been thinking
you did
it.
one.
I've been thinking it the whole time. I kind of want to caress it, but I won't.
I am honored. Thank you.
You want to caress his beard. See me after school.
It's very nice.
See me after school.
It's very nice. So great to have you. You do not like to be called a learning scientist. Can you say more about that?
Sure. Because I like to try and make things as accessible as possible.
Okay.
And when you are presented as a scientist, people get a little bit nervous and think, does this person live outside the lab? What kind of practical experience do you have?
Well, and you've got all kinds of practical experience, and since we're kind of pressed for time here, I sent it out to the group to say what you do. I'd like to read just a piece of your bio before we get started, but the introduction says that you build learning communities and a combination of educational psychology, cognitive science, multimedia production, and technology-based delivery experience have helped global audiences, which we're in alignment with that, global audiences achieve personal and professional success.
Yep.
So we're excited to unpack that with you today. I know that you've got an incredible story and a lot of work right here in Tennessee. He is a Sewanee graduate, part of the same conference as Millsaps College. So I'll have you know that we are among
On the mountain.
Yes.
we are among greatness. Another liberal arts grad, turning his liberal arts education into success and opportunity for himself and others.
Lost to some of the best.
Maybe. Yes. Let's take it back to Colby's question, and I love this question, and we're starting to ask our guests now. Can you identify a moment from your childhood that's one of or the best childhood memory? I don't want to feel like you got to just nail it down to one, but if you can, great. Favorite childhood memory?
Is the one that sticks with me. It's come back over and over again. I was, I think, turning 4 years old when the lunar landing happened. And I was playing in the backyard. My mom says, come inside and watch this on television. History's being made. And when I look back on that, it was a moment that crystallizes now a lot of the culture of learning that was going on in my family. We didn't call it that.
Yeah.
But there's a tradition of saying, you know what, there are things, there are moments in time that are important you want to remember for the rest of your life, and this is one of them. This is, this is humankind leaving the earth, living on another planet for as long a period of time as we can, and by golly, this is a new era for human beings. Setting
that stage for the film and television degree that happened for you at Sewanee. Setting I can just see you lining up the landing there. You know, the stat is that 80% of life-defining moments happen before age 35. So if you think about that childhood moment that set the stage, is there a moment in between that and 35 that you look at and say, this set the trajectory for me?
You know, the reason I went to Sewanee, so at the time, Sewanee was one of 2 or 3 universities that had a student and community-run volunteer fire and rescue service. And my family had medicine in the background. And my grandfather invented this stuff called sea breeze lotion.
Okay.
And at the time was killing it, and he was a research guy, and I thought, well, medicine's kind of cool. I wonder if I got the stomach for that and the mind for it. And I thought a good way to try and figure that out was to become an EMT, took the classes at Sewanee, and then made the cut to be on the team or on the on the rescue squad, and liked it so much that I became a training officer to teach people how to do all the certain things like cut cars open and rescue off the sides of a mountain and rappel and things like that. And we had the highest recovery rate for spinal injuries in the state. And that's including volunteer and paid EMS services. And on the mountaintop, you saw it all. You had agriculture, car accidents, climbing injuries, age-related things, childhood, falls, stuff like that. And so you get this great body of experience doing EMS. And in doing that, in becoming an EMS officer, one of the things we turned into were one of the public health outreach branches. So we did blood drives. We typed blood. We do blood draws and that kind of stuff. And so I got to know, both through the most tragic events in people's lives, the most needy opportunities in their lives, as well as routine health care, where people lived and the disparity. And it really moved me to think, if not for some education and some personal discipline and some lifestyle choices, we wouldn't be meeting today. If you wore your seatbelt, I wouldn't be putting your butt in the back of an ambulance. Or if you knew how to watch what you ate, we wouldn't be here talking about your heart attack and getting you to the hospital. Or if you knew how to handle stress and interfamily violence and anger management, we wouldn't be worried about your overdose.
But you say there's a real difference between training and education, and we'll get there in just a second as we move through this process. But it was the education, the opportunity to educate others, that really set the stage for you to end up to doing what you've done over the last 20 years.
And at that time, I was seeing the gap.
The gap.
Yep.
It's funny. It's interesting. Not funny. It's interesting that you said that, because I'm thinking, based on the little that I know about you and your work that you've done at this point, it wasn't for me so much what you just said about educating others as much as this like desire and unsatisfied desire to keep learning.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I hear about your childhood memory, when I hear about the reason you went to Swanee, it's this desire to learn as opposed to, and obviously they're both connected, right?
Yeah.
But I was thinking that while you were thinking the other.
Yeah.
And they're both true, I'm guessing.
Well, and it's learning is a lifelong pursuit. You never really stop, and people don't think about it that way, but you are constantly learning. You're taking data from the environment, you're figuring out how to process that, you're prioritizing the things you got to do in the right sequence to get a positive outcome. It could be just getting home from work.
And you have some very specific ideas about the best way to do that so that people can become the best versions of themselves. Employees can become the best version of themselves. And we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and as we start to get into that, I'm going to be fascinated to hear how you would define a GOAT, because one of the ways we honor all of our guests is give them the chance to share their definition of the greatest of all time. How would you define it? Everyone defines it a little bit uniquely. So that's always really fun. I'm going to ask you to do that here in just a second. And then share a GOAT with us, right? Sure. We've had some great GOATs. I mean, all the way back from Tupac and some of the easy ones. You've
Gene
got
Simmons?
Brady and Gene. Not Gene Simmons. It's the other Simmons.
Richard Simmons.
Richard Simmons. He's coming up. Richie.
That was his brother. That was Gene's younger brother.
We've had Zima. You know, if you remember Zima,
Oh, yeah.
that was the GOAT of not Bartles and James. It was Zima. So it can be a person, place, thing, a moment. We've had GOAT moments, but I can't wait to hear you share your definition and then a GOAT.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go time?
Go time.
Go time.
What is a goat to you?
GOAT time.
Well,
Goat
it's
time.
funny you should mention that. 'Cause
good.
when I think about goats, a lot of what I do in the learning challenge space is work with organizations, and we'd start with very high level strategic conversations. Say, you know what? What's the problem we're trying to solve in your organization? It could be sales, leadership development. It could be new hire orientation. It could be onboarding. It could be different kinds of skill sets in nurses and doctors. Whatever it is. The GOAT, people who excel in areas, practice what we call adaptive expertise. It is a intuitive performance and intuitive behavior where people can read an environment, process all the data they're being given, and act on that without having to literally think about it. It's just part of who they are. So when you see someone who is fantastic at basketball or football, like Eli Manning,
Heard of him.
Peyton Manning,
Yep.
one is some of the best at reading the field, and so they knew how to do the plays with that. They knew what plays to run based on their read of the other team, their own team's capabilities, the time on the clock, and what they need to accomplish.
Yeah.
They're masterful, adaptive experts.
Intuitive.
It's
Intuitive.
It's intuitive performance, and they practice mastery at the level of adaptive expertise.
That's great.
That
What
is good.
a great definition.
Because if you look at Michael Jordan, I mean, the average height of an NBA player is probably 6'6". He's 6'6". He's the average height.
Yeah.
But the reason that he was able to do all the things that he did is you've explained it in a way for me for the first time to understand.
He didn't have to process it. He was a step ahead.
He mastered it.
He did, and
it's an active process.
It
It's not a
is.
natural. I mean, maybe to a certain degree, but it's a learned.
it is. You can't maintain mastery without continuously learning, because your environment is continuously changing. The stepping stone to adaptive expertise is something we call routine expertise. So routine, think computer routines or rules, but or a process, a series of steps.
So that's why he was able to do what he did, because he started with routine expertise and moved to
He took the
adaptive.
time to learn the routines.
Yeah.
Yeah. He knew he had muscle memory, a routine.
Yeah.
He could read the court, a routine. He knew the rules,
Yeah.
a routine. He knew how to read what other players were doing on his team, a routine. He did that over and over again, to the point where he literally changed the wiring in his brain. And that's what, as you go from routine expertise to adaptive expertise. Routine expertise is memorizing the rules, and you memorize those rules and you practice those rules over and over again. 10,000 hours is 5 years of
I
work.
heard that. Outliers.
Yep, those are all. That's learning science research that was a lot of the stuff that my organizations applied. And so those numbers come from the data that we would help to develop through research and practice. And it's very, very consistent.
So
there are ways to accelerate that, but it's the same process.
So would you say you call that what expertise?
Routine
expertise is learning, and adaptive expertise is executing.
Routine is rules, and adaptive is applying the rules without having to actively think about the rules.
Got it. So I can't wait to hear you share who your GOAT is.
You know, I like the folks who display that intuitive performance. And it's really, regardless of genre or of profession, there are folks who you recognize them when you see them.
I'm sitting here trying to think who is intuitive performance. I mean, I'm going through my brain as fast as I can. I can't wait to see who it is. Intuitive performance.
Like from a football perspective, like you said, Peyton Manning is one of the best.
Omaha.
And changing everything.
But who is it? Who is it, John? Give me. I mean, who's the top in your head?
Just one?
Yeah, intuitive performance.
It doesn't have to be just one. I mean, in their field or multiple fields, like who would you say?
I'm going Larry Bird.
Larry Bird.
Yeah. I mean, think about it. Play after play after play. It was an intuitive performance.
Well, anyone at the top of their game is doing that.
Yes.
And so it really comes down to how fast you can learn the environment and apply.
I love the way you said
and respond as opposed to somebody else.
So they changed the actual game itself. Don't innovate to change the rules. Innovate to change the game. And they changed the game itself because of their mastery of the game.
Absolutely.
So here's my GOAT then that I'm going to throw out there.
John, you got to come up with one, buddy. Not you.
I'm going
John D.
One of my very first GOAT of episode 1 was Tupac, and I will hold firmly to that. However, I would also add, and maybe it's a slightly different genre. He would probably not agree, but I'm going to go with Eminem. And if you've ever watched his movie, 8 Mile, you will see what you've described here. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure in sport, probably in sport, any other area where this is so easily applied, routine, adaptive expertise, and how he executes that in this particular movie, which is a story of his life. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a true-ish story, right? Yep. To which he plays his own self. Eminem, he's the GOAT.
I like it. I believe it. Tyler?
Wow. There's so many. I've used it 100 times, and I'm going to use it again. Coach Pete, my college baseball coach, and he always used to tell me, Bernie, when you think you got it figured out, you might as well hang them up.
Yeah.
And he meant the same things. You know?
Stop learning.
You got to continually learn, new footwork and new positioning and new skills. And, everything has changed so much. If you think about baseball, you probably hear, if you go to a Little League game, you'll hear somebody, hey, get your bat up, get your elbow up. Mm-hmm. Nobody does that anymore.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And the reason behind it is science and studying and continually to learn that.
Yeah.
And they had to continue to learn because the baseball's changed, which made everything change. The mechanics of the pitcher allowed the fastball to move more, to curve more. They went from throwing 90 to throwing 105. Mm-hmm. All the above.
The field conditions, the physical fitness of your...
the lights, the backdrop, everything. The stadiums. The
temperature, humidity.
Yeah, everything. So it's just really cool to think about. And I love Coach Pete, and that was just one of his simple ways of saying a very similar thing.
Great.
Anybody to add?
Well, I think Roger Federer.
Ooh.
Because...
so timely now.
I just think about when you watch him play... He does not have time to think. Yeah, he's watching the ball come off of somebody else's racket at 70 to 100 miles an hour. And you don't have time to say, well, you know what, I bet that's going to have a topspin on it. And I think I need to change my grip. And I think I need to move my feet over here. And I think, no, you don't do that at all. You are in the moment. It's flow.
Yeah.
You
it's
reckon
like Eminem.
All those pieces come together for you, and you get where the ball's going to be. You don't run to where the ball.
Right.
But he did that. He did that so much through mastery and practice, and I think
absolutely
we do that so much in sports. But I think sometimes in business we forget that you have to practice for the game too.
Yep.
And it's something that I want to challenge myself to do is to continue to learn how to be a better leader. And if I'm just putting out fires all day long, I'm never going to spend time in the practice to learn how to implement that. So
You said you went to high-level CEOs and said, what's the problem?
Yep.
What's the problem? And the answer that they gave you, from there, you created learning strategies to solve the problem.
Yep.
Let's dig deeper into that in round 2. Would that be good for you? Well,
I think that's a great segue to
I think we need to make that happen.
keep the audience ready.
Yeah.
On their toes.
Yeah.
hey, Southwest has adapted well over the years.
Well, they've got both.
Tyler's still hanging on. He's ready to keep going.
They have both routine and adaptive mastery, right? I mean, they've got it figured out. The routine is right. I mean, land the plane, fill it up with gas, put the people on the plane.
Well, they're the ultimate routine. They have the exact same platform. They have one plane. So all their parts, all their pilots, all their supplies, their gates, everybody knows the equipment. So they have taken that, they've routinized travel.
And then the adaptive is the fun and the love of those that work within the plane.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you don't have different platforms, you can get that routine baked quickly, which means you can be actionable that much faster. You can be adapted much faster because you're not having to change your game whenever you enter a new vehicle or new platform.
Yeah.
Your ground crews, their behavior becomes routine. The pilots are routine.
Yeah.
To adaptive very easily.
So we just went to the moon and back in 20 minutes with John Dunavan. So stay with us. And John, do you have time to stay for part 2?
You bet.
Stay for part 2. We don't know what planet we're going to go to, but it's going to be worth the ride for Tyler Burnett and John Byers. He does have a last name. And my friend John Dunavan. And over there on the board,
Mikey.
his name's Davey, but we call him Mikey. I'm Colby Jubenville, and this is the Go Consulting Podcast.
Boom.